Welcome to your
The White
Liberation Library.
Republic, Race,
Dive
Religion, and American Nationalism.
and
Ishmael Wade here with
Hello, welcome back to Your Liberation Library. This is where we find compelling books to discuss and mix it up. Sometimes we stay on topic with the book. Sometimes the conversation floats around. We don't really try to control it. We just try to we just try to free our minds and just open our minds to new possibilities, new ways of thinking, open up conversations that need to be had in the community. Just to hopefully make this world a little bit better, hopefully provide a little bit more light than heat, but we don't mind if things get a little bit heated either. We just try to have some fun and put something in our minds at the same time. Today, we are very blessed to have Dr. Ramona Hyman. There are many things, many titles that we could attach to her. She's a poet, she's a scholar. She is the founder of the African American Healers Conference, and along with that, she has a recent release of a book that she edited along with one of my mentors and also a previous guest on Your Liberation Library, Dr. Andy Lampkin. They were the editors, and there's many contributors inside, and so we're gonna take a look into Dr. Ramona Hyman's world, what led to the African American Healers book and conference, and who knows where else the conversation will take us. Dr. Hyman, welcome. Just introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, my name is Dr. Ramona Hyman. I run a summer camp that I love to talk about for children. At that camp, I'm Miss Ramona.
Okay.
I'm a professor at Oakwood University, and recently I became a governor's appointee for the Alabama State Council on the Arts. That's who I am. I'm a lover of writing. I'm a lover of writing poetry. And I also like to encourage people, students, adults to just write. Yeah, something about the printed word, about that word.
Yes, good. When did you begin? When did you first start writing poetry? When did you find out that you were a poet?
Well, you know what? Actually, I wrote when I was a kid. But then when I went to college, I started college at Virginia Union. I'm from Philadelphia originally, and I heard that Sonia Sanchez was coming to teach at Temple University. And I am a lover of the writers of the Black Arts Movement before I even met them. And so I decided that I was going to transfer back home and I was going to go to Temple University because I wanted to experience a creative writing program. And so I transferred to Temple and I studied with Sonia Sanchez. And I kind of knew I was a poet when I had sent some poetry to a literary magazine, true story, and Etheridge Knight was one of the writers of the Black Arts Movement. And I still have it. And he sent me this letter back and he started the letter with "Dear Poet."
All right, wow.
And that's when
nice.
we workshop, we were in a workshop that Sonia Sanchez sponsored, and Etheridge Knight was the poet. And so to get that letter from him, I still remember it. And then
so that added fuel to that fire that was already beginning, or at least there was a spark there. Then you got that, and it's like confirmation.
It was the confirmation, and then when I was a student at Temple, Sonia Sanchez, and this is a lesson I have taken this method of teaching from her. She took us, a group of us, to New York City. And we were in a New York City upper room, is what I call it in a poem. And it was Amiri Baraka there, and Larry Neal and Sonia. They just mentored us in that room. So
Wow.
yeah,
Nice.
I felt like a
Nice.
writer, yeah, at that particular time.
Yeah. Wow. So now, what inspired you to go from there and to become an English professor?
I went, and after meeting Sonia and studying with her, I was an English major,
Mhm,
but I became committed to the field
mhm.
of English. After studying with her, and I worked for Malefe Asante.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah.
So what's your writing process like? I mean, we don't always on Liberation Library actually have the author uh, involved in the conversation of the book that we're featuring. So, we want to be able to take advantage of having you here. And there's all different kinds of ideas and practices for writing. And so are you like one of those disciplined writers? Okay, I'm gonna do 500 words a day at a certain time, have a certain place where I do it, or do you go out on inspiration hits you while you're in the kitchen or whatever? I mean, how does it work? What does it look like?
Well, I plan my writing in terms of not when inspiration hits at this point. At this point, I am, for instance, right now working on projects,
Mhm.
and so I am always thinking. As I was saying this morning, Montgomery is always on my mind, because
Okay,
right now I'm working on a project on the Montgomery bus boycott.
okay,
And
okay.
so the process before anything is on the page, although much of that project has been written, but I always keep that before me,
Mhm,
that I am working on this project.
mhm,
And so I want to, in this case, I want to read everything concerning or related to that project.
mhm.
And then I want to feel Montgomery. I want
Mhm.
to
How
feel,
how do you feel it? Take us into the feeling. All right, it's one thing to read stuff, but yeah, what gets you in that mood and helps you get that feel?
so I listen to music
All right, well,
about
yeah, let's get
the
into the
boycott.
music. What?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And so What a Fellowship, What a Joy Divine is one of the major songs of the boycott.
Okay,
That's a
okay,
historical fact.
okay.
The first meeting that they were in at the Holt Street Baptist Church,
Hmm.
song they sung was What a Fellowship, What a Joy Divine.
Okay.
That lets me know that the boycott was grounded in a Christian ethos.
Hmm.
So therefore, the Christian music drives me in terms of that project.
Hmm.
And then I look at, like, we have YouTube, look at videos, okay, on the boycott, on the civil rights movement, on the Black church. And then the other thing is going to, which I'm fortunate to be in Alabama, just
Right,
going to that place,
right.
going to those places, going to Alabama State, which I call the boycott school, going to King's Home, going to Dexter Avenue, visiting the Rosa Parks Museum. Okay,
Hmm.
and it's just visiting the Capitol there. And so being in the place,
Yes,
okay, really just has helped me in terms of
gotcha.
that process. And
Good.
then moving from there in terms of the writing, and in terms of this piece, this is a collection of essays.
Okay.
Okay, this is not poetry, but the writing is similar in that, for instance, in the chapter I'm working on now is on the Browder v. Gale case. And so I am imagining what it was like to be in that courtroom with Fred Gray, you know, who I would suggest that people read his book, Bus Ride to Justice.
Bus Ride to Justice.
Bus Ride to Justice. And what would it have been like to be in that courtroom with him and Claudette Colvin, Louise Smith, the four women named in that lawsuit. Because what I'm saying in that piece is that it was a blues experience. So I imagine, you know, what was it like, you know, in that courtroom, in terms of reading that document. And then, you know, just push through it. For me, it's not like, you know, just like writing like the one draft and that's it. You know, it's not that.
Multiple revisions, huh?
Yeah, so that's how I approach that. And then approaching to give people just a vision. I'm finishing a children's book called Grandma Jackson's Poetry. Now with that one, I'm working with an editor and an artist. So we're working through that together.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's jump to African-American healers now. So now this book didn't just start out, you had an idea for a book, but you had the conception for an African-American healers conference. Where did that come from? And how long has that been in the making? And what are some of the highlights thus far?
Well, of course, you know, back I had the opportunity to work at Loma Linda University in the School of Religion.
Okay.
And I always say I'm not a theologian. I'm not a theologian. And I worked at the School of Religion and Humanities program. And so one of a text that I think people really should read is the whole concept of narrative medicine. And so I began to think about the healing modalities in African-American culture and how, in spite of everything, African-American people function as healers. When you look at the writers, you know, of the Black arts movement, their whole drive was to heal. And that has been the work. I mean, something as simple as in spite of what is done or has been done, is done or has been done to African-American people, we always find ourselves in a way of forgiveness. So there's a healing consciousness within us.
Yes.
Right. And so, you know, I began to think about that. And so I, of course, you know, came up with that idea, looking at other conferences that have been done in terms of African-American people. We begin our conversations about us in terms of the problem. And the flip is to begin the conversation with us as healers. So the center of who we are people who are healing people. That is who we are. So out of that, you know, I had a conversation with colleagues at Loma Linda, and went to the dean, John Pauline, and
Mhm.
he said yes to the conference. Yes, to
Alright.
the conference. And so after that, I said to myself, we need a book. We need to gather these essays in a book. And so a proposal was developed and I shot the book. And this is what I tell my students. The first answer that you get may not be yes. The second answer may not be yes, but you keep shopping it. And then Pacific Press thankfully said yes.
Good. So
Yeah.
now take us back to the conference. You mentioned the essays. So you have some presenters of different backgrounds. Can you give us a little bit of who's who and what kind of topics are being covered in here?
So, okay, in terms of who's who, in terms of the original conference, we were blessed to have Dr. Mervyn Warren, who gave us the opening. And many of your people in your audience probably know him. And he talked about the Faith Hall of Famers. And then, of course, we had Dr. Rock, who I always remember.
Callie B. Rock. Mhm.
Yes, Healed by Something Better. We had one female, We Too
Mhm.
Sing America, Andrea Trustee King, Dr.
Yes.
King. And so
Tremendous preacher, but I mean, her essay was phenomenal.
yes, she is
Very
a
gifted writer.
wonderful, I would say she's a wonderful and a meaningful creative intellectual. I think if we can bring all that together.
Yes, that's a perfect description. Creative intellectual.
Yeah.
Sometimes we might be tempted to put those in different spheres, but she definitely has a tremendous amount of overlap between those two.
Oh yeah, and the thing about it is that we can't put that in my imagination. All intellectuals are creative.
Mhm.
Okay, they are creative people in terms of the path that they take. Some you might be able to identify a little bit more,
Mhm.
okay, than others. So it was just a wonderful group. Benjamin Baker, who is not in the book, was also on the panel. And of course, we understand the work that he has done. Okay.
Yes. Tremendous historian and writer.
Yes. So it was a great experience. We brought it to Oakwood, and we had it at Oakwood, and I envision the work continuing.
Yeah. So what's next for African American healers as the conference? And then maybe I'm gonna have another question or so about the book.
Yes. So what's next in terms of what I envision in terms of the conference is to sit with, I think there needs to be a conversation, because of course, if you look at the book, the writers are of a particular generation. Okay.
Mhm.
And so I think there also needs to be a conversation to continue in terms of a younger generational group. I also believe that there needs to be a documentary,
Mhm.
that looks at, that specifically looks at, not just in terms of the history in terms of Black Seventh-day Adventists, but the history as it's related to that healing modality.
Mhm.
And I'm in conversation with someone about that now. That is the
Nice.
next step that I would like to take.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
So yes, we have a number of, we have people from different backgrounds. I mean, we have some from medical backgrounds, some from theological backgrounds, writing and poetry backgrounds like yourself, of course, in African American healers. And even though you mentioned a particular generation, you actually have a mixture of probably about 3 different generations that were involved in this. I mean, when we're talking
Yes.
about Dr. Warren and Dr. Rock, I mean, we're going back to like that builder generation, that
Yes.
World War II generation of folks, and then we have some from that boomer and from the Gen X, and but we might be, yeah, so we have at least 3 there. There might have,
Yes.
we might be able to stretch it a little bit and call 1 or 2 of them and like a geriatric millennial. But yeah, there might have been a couple that were on the border of being millennial in there. So I commend you on that generational composition that you were able to bring together, because that was good, and look forward to what you have in store, and especially now towards the era where we're exiting COVID, at least COVID restrictions. I mean, you know, just like we have the flu that rebounds every year, we'll probably have that with COVID for a while, but we've gotten a handle on it a little better, and I think we'll be able to open up to actually come together in person for meetings like this, because I think there is something special that happens when you bring them together like you did.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for you making time out for this, being a guest here on Liberation Library, for the work that you did to continue shopping that. I think you sent a good subliminal message about what it takes to be a writer, as you said, hey, you shopped it and you continued doing it. That's what you have to do as a writer, right? I mean,
yes, you really do.
You have to be persistent.
You have to be consistent, and you have to be willing to hear no. You know, you have to be willing to hear no, and you have to have that belief that this is a project that needs to be shared. So you really have to have that belief, and then you have to be humble enough to the voice of the work. So it's not, you can't put your voice in front. You have to be humble enough to what I say to students all the time. And if you don't mind, I would like to share a poem with you.
Yes, that'll be a great way to cap it off.
All the time is that you have to ask the work, what does it want to say? And what does it need to be its best self? Not for you to be in front of it to be your best self, but for the work to be its best self. And, you know, and sometimes they give me this look. And so I said, you know, especially like in poetry, ask the poem. Yeah.
Ask the poem.
Just ask the
right.
poem. But
Nice. Thank you so much. I hope to have you back on again one day. And
okay, so can I end with the poem?
Oh, yes, your poem. Yes, we got to end with that. Thank you.
So the poem that I want to share is about my favorite place, Alabama, and it's called Alabama the Beautiful. On December the 14th, 1819, Alabama breathed itself beautiful. Alabama rocked itself into beauty like sweet tea time on a front porch. A rocking chair, a square wooden table was all that was needed. Sweet lemon tea would turn Alabama from heartbreak soul to lovely. All that porch drinking made them souls fancy the hue of all Alabamians. from sweet cream tan to chocolate brown, met along the Mississippi River to baptize the new Alabama. Something about if you immerse the soul in water, the troubling waves become lost in the wrinkle of the water. Hallelujah. Worlds on end saw Alabama shape itself lovely. That's why when you're riding down 65 South, you see that sign before you, Alabama, the beautiful. And that is the place that has shaped me.
Nice, nice. Thank you for sharing from your heart, sharing your passion for poetry, your passion for healing. And once again, we welcome you back another time. And I know you're going to have something else special for us. Until next time, we want to just ask the audience, until we see you again on your Liberation Library, what's in your library?
Baby.